Welcome, 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 Rachel, Bootstrapper Hour. How are we doing today?
We're doing very good, thank you. The coffee is heavily fueled up, and I am raring to go. Actually, my second meeting of the day, so I feel like an old pro at 8 in the morning.
Wow. Quite frankly, I just walk the dogs, so
You got the slightly better deal. I know that we're kind of doing this as a first attempt, so it's going to be a little bit show and tell styly while we learn. But yeah, I wondered if there was a way that I can actually see who's in the room.
well, no, it doesn't tell us who is here. However, Chris has just waved, so Chris is here. Hey, Chris, Bluey, the guy that knows everything about Bluey, right? Am I right? What happens is on LinkedIn, they'll ask their questions, they'll wave, they'll do everything on the comments, and
So I
then
need
we will
LinkedIn
chat.
open as well, do I?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Trial and
But
error. Bear with.
make sure you make
I'll
sure
get,
you put that one on mute.
I'll get that one open as well.
Yeah. And there we go. There's our faces. Woo! What a treat.
Every day is a learning day.
Well, you know what? The first one, if it's not a roaring success, that's a good thing because there's things to learn and improve on, right? Otherwise, it would get boring really quickly.
All right. It's pretty cool.
It is indeed. It is indeed. All right. So we're here, Bootstrapper Hour, to basically take what's in your brain, ask questions for free about how to bootstrap a business, whether it's getting started or whether you're in the actual midst of a business. Fire those questions at you and see what happens. Are you ready?
I'm kind of ready. I'm like trying to look at two screens, trying not to freak out. Can you hear me all right?
We're all good. We can hear you.
Good. Okay.
All right. So we did have a DM first off for someone that cannot be here this morning but hopes to be here uh, in September. So just to remember, guys, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments and then we'll get to them as we do. So the first question we had in DMs is what's the first thing you actually do to start a business? So I'm
Um,
guessing this person wants to start one, but where do you start? It's a bit of overwhelm.
I've kind of lost audio now, Joe.
You've lost audio?
Oh, hold on, you're back. Okay, I see what the problem is. It's running slightly behind LinkedIn, and
Yes,
so
indeed.
oh my god, this is seamless, isn't it? What could possibly go wrong or right? So, what's the first thing that you do when you're building a business? I think standard business advice would say build out a business plan and be convincing that you've got a target market and you're aware of what they actually want to buy. Um, for me, I would run that as a parallel activity, and I would be probably relatively clear about what you want to take to market, and I'd be out there trying to take it to market, trying to sell it whilst you are proving out the concept and writing that strategy. So I think the my kind of key advice to any business owner is if business development isn't sitting at the heart of what you're attempting to do, you're going to have a serious challenge. So first thing is the ability to get out and be convincing that you know your area of expertise and you're bringing, whether it's a product or a service, you're bringing something pretty compelling to market.
Okay. Okay. I almost want to go right down to literally what was the first step you took?
Uh,
The
the
very
first
first step.
the first step for this business, the first step I took this time round was about building out a service. So I didn't intend to build a business again. I am quite masochistic, and I wanted to see, can I actually apply myself properly and build a service that people are going to want to buy. So first step was not a business strategy. It was all about getting that service and understanding, was there a market out there for it. So that was the very first step, and it was very cathartic. I'd sold the last business, and I wanted to take some of that learning, and I guess I wanted to build a service that I needed when I exited the last business. So many founders build off the back of experiencing a problem themselves. And why would you
Okay.
not?
Okay. And so following on from that is when you're either starting the business or in the business, a DM that we had, which was, how do you decide if you need a business partner?
Yeah, that's a good question. I I guess you decide you need a business partner the same way that you decide, do you need staff and when you need staff. And what I mean by that is, you would tend to bring additional people in when you have extended your kind of sphere of influence or area of expertise. So, an example, if you're a brilliant domain expert in a certain area, but you are dreadful with finances, then as somebody who is growing a business, that's going to need to be a skill that you either buy in or you bring in through business partner to achieve. Um, there's varying schools of thought around business partners. I've had business partners for previous businesses. I haven't gone through that process at the start of the grafter, albeit we're now moving into a place where certainly one of the team has equity in the business, and ultimately I would like the core team to have equity in the business.
Okay. Okay. Is there some kind of way that you would do that? I know with your last business, when you decided you were going to sell it, you did like a whole piece using I forget what it's called. That's quite complicated, but once you get it, you get it.
You mean like an EMI scheme?
Broadly mapping.
Ah,
Broadly mapping.
okay. So yeah. I guess in way of the business this time, I'm planning for. I mean, you plan for the future, and so my intention will be to recognise the people that are working as part of the core team. Um, and quite how the mechanics of how we do that. If they're permanent, it's easy because there are a number of schemes that are approved by HMRC. If they are contractors, it's less easy because you actually have to build a scheme yourself. So lots of different ways to skin a cat. Pardon the pun or phrase, but. I think it's the motivation that's the important part. It's what are you building it for? How are you going to recognize the team that are around you? And for startup businesses, the reality is people are not necessarily paid industry standard, and there's a risk. If you're working for a startup, it's a huge risk that they're going to be here today and not around tomorrow. So
Indeed, indeed. All right, so we've got our first questions from the live audience. And the first one is from Jess Tappin, founder of Jessie Tea Therapy, who I believe is just starting up a new venture as well. And she puts, how do you hit your target audience specifically?
Jess, I'm guessing, but please clarify if I've got this wrong. You're talking about business development, and you're talking about how do I get out to market and speak to the right people. So this is a process whereby we actually define who our ideal client is, and for the grafter, we have a couple of different services, and so therefore we have slightly nuanced ideal client personas. But there is strangely, I did this yesterday. So we're doing a campaign for our 8-figure exit service in September. So I was having a look at, what the characteristics are of the target audience that I want to attract, what sort of businesses they're running, what value their business is at the minute, and what are some of the things that we would expect to see from a press perspective around these businesses. So as they, if we're out to market to target people that want to exit ultimately, then, it'd be expecting them to have been running the business for 5 years plus. Would be expecting them to be probably doing in excess of 5 mil in way of turnover. And there will be key markers. If, for example, they have taken equity into the business, then they would be at least through a Series A, Series B. So there's certain prompts that we can have a look at from a market perspective. But how we get out to market as a business is through outbound lead generation. So that's how we attract new prospects into the grafter. I don't know if that answers your question, but please feel free to add a follow-up question if it doesn't.
That's awesome. I think with Jess, her new business is B2C. However, it's generally transferable, is it not?
Yeah, it's same principle. So I think whether it's B2B or so business to business or business to customer or consumer, it's exactly the same. You still need to understand who you're targeting. I think one of the common problems with startups is they go wide, and I did this at Different, the last business. We went very wide at the outset, but we also got in bed with people. Not literally, it wasn't that exciting. But we got in bed with businesses that we knew were not our ultimate ideal clients, but we knew we could deliver a service, we could create some value for them, and we could create some revenue for us. So it was a necessary part of that growing process. Yeah, I think that being really clear about your ideal client and target client is key, and it's a lot of thinking and trial and error, yeah, it's not a 2-minute job. I probably had a couple of hours on it yesterday, so it's very front of mind. But Jess, if you would like to have a look at the template that I use to create our ICP, I'm really happy to grab contact details and share it with you. So it's something that one of our partners has created, but it's fantastic. So it may well be of use. Happy to share that.
And just for those, ICP, what does it mean?
Ideal client persona.
Awesome. Thank you. I know we can all get very easily taken away by all the acronyms and then forget that some people are just starting out. So, next question is from Chris. How do you know when an MVP is good enough? Not the worry is that first impressions might put someone off.
I've got a feeling this is a slightly loaded question, actually, Chris, but I appreciate this one. So a minimal viable product is, it is in plenty of ways an MVP, in my opinion, is throwaway. And what I mean by that is you prove enough that it works. But it is not. It doesn't need to be scalable. It doesn't need to be fully robust, fully even secure, because this is not something you're going to ship. This is about proving that something works. And from there, you then have a robust roadmap that allows you to build additional features, functionality, and take that to market. MVPs in my world, I come from the world of technology, which is astonishing for those that work with me, But and Joe's barely resisting a smile. But the 16 weeks is where my head is at for an MVP. So if something, and that is at the outside, if something is taking, from a product perspective, longer than 16 weeks to prove that it is working, then you are over egging that pudding. And it needs to be reined back in to something reality. This is not building a product that you're going to ship. It's proving a concept. It's a hypothesis. It's a theory. It's the Blue Peter moment. It's let's try and shape something up and prove that it works, but it is not. This is market ready. And loads of people make this mistake. They want to throw the kitchen sink in. They want to build an MVP over a 3-year period and burn millions, and it's not the real world. So MVP should prove it works. From there, you get cracking. You sell it, you start to generate revenue, or you take some investment because you've proved it works. Does that answer your question, Chris? I can tell that coffee's just kicked in for me as well. Woo!
I love that. Obviously, we are on a delay, so Chris may come back to us in a second. Jess is saying amazing. Yes, fantastic. So I'm sure we'll drop your details in and she can send you a DM on LinkedIn. We know you love those. So we've actually had a DM from somebody who can't join and has realised they can't join. Yep, Chris says thank you. And Beck has asked, is it best to promote one product rather than a whole bunch and concentrate on that first to build a brand?
Sorry, Joe, just run that question by me again.
Sure. Is it best when starting a business, when building your brand, is it best to promote one product
Yeah.
rather than a whole bunch and just concentrate on that one product?
Yeah, because I would say yes. It depends. If you've raised money and you've got a massive team and you can split out and have individual product managers take that stuff to market and you've got the necessary selling power, you could go large and take a few. But the whole point of taking these things to market is that you're learning, you're iterating, and you're redefining what the product looks like and how the market is responding. That is an awful lot of work if you're running stuff concurrent. And so, certainly, if you're bootstrapped, my inclination would be to take a product to market and do that learning and prove it through, and then start to achieve product market fit before adding additional products to the lineup. Maybe that's a slightly cautious approach, but I'm a bootstrapped founder, not not somebody who has taken other people's money to build businesses. It's also why my team are generally in despair with my response of you can't spend more than a fiver on anything, because we do run the business very lean. But I would say take a product out, get the learning, refine the proposition, refine how you're going to market, and then go after product market fit and then expand from there.
Nice. That's quite a loaded one for them to work on. All right. So we've had another one through the comments. Sharon Pickering has the advice I recently received was build the market, not the product. Do you have any insight on how to translate this? And I'm going to put in there, she did put a crying, laughing face emoji at the end of it.
I think that is solid advice, and I think that probably refers to making sure there is a market out there. And loads of people see a problem and want to fix it for themselves. That's what I did with building 8-figure exit. But if you don't understand and you don't do some market research and talk to potential customers, you're not going to know if there is. So I think this is about creating a bit of a buzz, starting to engage with, using social media, using platforms like LinkedIn Live, albeit the start of this was slightly chaotic, and starting to ask the audience and have those conversations. I know plenty of founders that build in public for this very reason. You know, you are, and there's a brilliant book. It's called Zero. I can't remember the author. Um, I'll get the link to it and I'll put it in here somehow when we learn how to do that. Um, but I would say starting to engage with, talking to, creating some noise, and raising a bit of an awareness, maybe a campaign around what you're doing, is good advice. There's something that I frequently blog about, which is it doesn't really matter what you take to market. The market will dictate what it's buying from you anyway. And this is something we've seen within the Grafter in the last 6 months. So as a business, we help founders grow, scale, and exit. By definition, we are synonymous. I am synonymous with delivery from a consultancy perspective. So whatever the services are we've taken to market, individuals will still knock on the door and ask for certain things that may or may not be in our kind of wheelhouse. Not so much not in our wheelhouse, but may not be services we offer today. And what I mean by that is we can absolutely deliver them, and we do. But I think the challenge to founders is ultimately to try and stay on message with the services you want to take to market. The market will always dictate what it wants to buy, and there's a sweet spot between the two. But I would say making a buzz, raising awareness, using the power of social media to start to create that noise, and ask the audience, would be solid advice.
Nice. Now, I've just put the book I hope that you mentioned in there, which is Zero, the biography of a dangerous idea.
I'm not sure it is actually, but I will. It's a German guy or a Swiss guy, I'm sure. But I will definitely find it. I can have a look. Let me try and do that real time. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? So Sharon says, "Fab, thank you." Definitely answered that question. We do have another one, but I'm just going to give you a second to find this book and we can pop it up so everybody can see. Zero to
Oh,
One
yeah,
by
yeah.
Peter.
That's the one. That's the one.
There we go. All right. Thank you very much, Chris. That is the book.
Well done,
Absolutely.
Chris.
Will be
Great
deleting my
team.
comment. There we go. All right. So we have another DM question from somebody, and it's again about starting the business. If you can't afford to bring people in to help you map it out, what's the best model to use or something to map it out so you can clearly see any gaps or what have you?
So, in my opinion, the very best is the business canvas model, and the reason I use that is it is a one-page view, and I'm quite simplistic, but I'm also very visual. So it gives you a one-page view. You've got your value proposition that sits at the centre, and then you work all the way around, and you have a look at customers, market, costs, what you're going to take stuff out to market for, who you need to help you, what channels you're going to go out to market this with. But the business canvas model, or business model canvas, always get it wrong. You can find a copy of that on Miro, or just Google business model canvas. It is worth having a watch of a video, which you'll find on YouTube, a couple of minutes long. And that video will take you through the best way to complete that business model canvas. But you start with a value prop, and then you work your way around clockwise. But that video will explain all. And I would say starting with that is a really good way of getting a clear view and a clear grounding of what you want to build and where you go. The reality is, all of us start a business on our own. So, unless you have gone through a process of raising some money, we all start on our Todd. And in short order, we start to hire the skills that we don't have ourselves, to make that process a little bit easier. That's what happens. But start with the business model canvas.
Okay, that's really interesting. So that's definitely helpful to know that you can go and find a breakdown of that, and that really helps you just understand where you're at, and also potentially the questions that you may not have asked yourself.
Yeah, and the reality is also get people thinking about the value proposition. So it's not, what product or service am I building, but it is what's the value I'm creating for somebody else. And most people then, the inclination is I've built an X, Y, and Z. Nobody cares. What they want to hear is what problem is it solving for me and how fast normally. That's template will allow you to think about that from a value proposition perspective.
That's great. That's really interesting. Okay, so we have another DM question. Unfortunately, she is currently tutoring, so can't be here. And she's a online tutoring service. She went from being a teacher to deciding that being in a school was not for her anymore, and tutoring home to
Why?
home.
Can't imagine why, especially if they were secondary school students, but maybe that's based upon my own behaviour at school.
Indeed. And so she moved to in at home tutoring, and then due to the pandemic moved it to online. And since then it has flourished. However, she needs to take new people on. Is there a way to work out the best financially the best way to do that so you're not losing they're not losing out, the contractors you bring in, the teachers that you bring in, they're not losing out and you're not ripping them off, but also you are actually making some money from them as well. Is there a way to work that out?
Yeah, so I think, well, let's break some of that down a little bit. When you build a business, you are hopefully building a business. You're not creating a new job for yourself. And what I mean by that is ultimately anyone building a business doesn't continue to be the domain expert themselves in the same way that you've said your friend is now needing to bring other people in. Her role will ultimately change. It will move from I'm the tutor to I'm managing people who are tutoring. um, and there's a police car going by. I don't know if you can hear that.
We can, and is it for you?
It's strangely not actually, but it is only 8:30 on a Wednesday morning, so not yet. Um, but what I would say is there are lots of different ways that you can bring in those skills, and bring them in at I guess, a price point that is fair and equitable. I mean, most people don't sign up for a job that they don't sign up for a rate that they don't want to get paid. What the business is getting paid should be immaterial. Frankly, lots of people get excited about this, but the reality is, I wouldn't sign up for a pay packet that I didn't want. Um, so I would be advising your friend to not get too excited about that side of it. There are loads of different ways to bring in temporary contract resource. Upwork is a good example. In way of where do you find these skills? Um, but the reality is, I think it's more about making sure that they're aware their role ultimately will change. If the big love affair is in teaching, and actually online tutoring, then she or he will need to ask themselves: is it really that I want to be bringing more people in and managing them, or do I enjoy tutoring? And so it's a balance and it's a trade off, but it's a fundamental question for a business owner, because plenty of people think I love this job, and so therefore I'm going to go and build a company. But it's like, but why? If you love doing that job, building a company, you're going to be doing loads of different things, not just that domain expertise. Um, but I think that there will be a balance to be had around bringing in the skills, and making sure that the commercial side is managed both ways. The other piece of advice that I would pass on is being really clear on expectations of whoever she or he brings in, not just the domain expertise, so not just the what they deliver, but how they deliver. And that's advice from years ago from a good friend of ours, Rita Proclus, who taught me a long time ago that it isn't just good enough to be able to tick the boxes from a domain expertise perspective, but if you are building a business, then you want the culture that you bring to the party taken forward, and that requires people to deliver on a what and a how. I hope that slightly longer explanation than I'd expected. I think it was the police siren. It's still freaking me out.
It's all good. It's actually really interesting because it actually makes me think about something that you wrote recently, actually, which is working in or on the business. And it's a fundamental question. It actually is a fundamental question to whether you grow or stay where you are.
It is, and I think it's also the mindset of a founder. I I can do lots of the delivery work that we do as a business, but it's not where I should be, and it's not the best use of me, and it's also not where I'm going to be if we're going to grow the business. And trust me, we are going to grow the business. And so it's about making sure that you bring those skills in, and that my time as the founder is spent working on, not in. And also the senior team in short order. I need to be planning not just for succession, but I'm building a business that doesn't require me to be in it every minute of every day. It needs to be able to run without me. The hero mentality of running the last business needs to be a distant memory. Me wanting to be in it is fine, but the business needing me every minute of every day, that's not a sustainable business, and that's not the business we're building this time.
Okay, that's interesting, and it is helpful to hear from experience what rather than just do this because I said so, rather and it's do this because actually I learned the hard way.
The very hard way at certain times.
Oof. No, no one wants you to leave right now. So Chris has asked, extending from working on in the business, for someone coming from the corporate world, there is a large amount of simply being busy. What advice would you give someone to relearn how to prioritize their own time and focus on what is actually building the business rather than working in it and avoid the busyness trap? Oof, that's a good question, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chris. Not an easy one to answer either. So I think that, well, a couple of things. I'm going to break this one down. I think the reality is we are a culture, and we've created a culture of wanting to be busy and distraction. Um, so that would be point one. So I think we're in this constant, everything's fast, everything's immediate. I'm ordering a takeaway. Where is it? Do you know what I mean? Everything is fast. Amazon for ordering everything. I'm just talking about myself here. They'll probably be knocking on the door in a minute though, because I probably placed an order earlier this morning that I'd forgotten about. So I think the bit for me is about being really structured with yourself and as a business in making sure that there is dedicated time to work on, not in. And that is as simple as actually blocking time out and making sure that it's focus time. And it's really hard, Chris, when we're in this period. And Chris works for me at the Grafter, but it's really hard when we're at this period because we're growing the business. We are in the phase where we are still doing delivery work for organisations that probably don't entirely fit our ideal customer persona. And it's that trade off, it's the balancing act on creating revenue to build out our services, get product market fit, proper product market fit. And so it's just a constant challenge, is the God's honest truth. But block the time in the diary. your boss is not as much of a wanker as I've heard you think she is. No, I'm joking. I don't know whether we can edit around that, Joe, but maybe not because we're live. But the reality is it's just good discipline. And it is, trying not to be pulled into everything on a day-to-day basis, and being vigilant around making sure you've got time. One technique that I actually use, Chris, personally, is actually review at the end of each month um, how I've used my time, where I've got energy from. And I do this from a personal perspective as well as business. But it's a really good discipline around looking at how you've spent time. So maybe that's something I share as well, because it's a useful tool that I picked up a couple of years ago, and it allows me to look at where I spend my time. I use it for lots of different things actually. Kind of tracking health, what's been good fun, what's been a drainer, which is one of my favourite subjects. But it definitely is a useful tool for me to track working on, not just in. So I hope that answers part of your question. Monthly
Yeah,
review.
that's
Thank you, Joe.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
I've popped a link on the chat there. It's that was a really oof question, because I think that regardless of where you are in a business, you can fall prey to this. So that's a really, Chris, great question. I'll be listening back to that one. Next one up, we've got Sarah Bruce. How do you manage using contractors and them not holding on to the relationships slash owning the relationships slash leaving with them further down the line?
So, great question. This was a problem that we had at Different. So, contractors, I was a contractor for 25 years, and I have a lot of affinity with contractors. Um, but the reality as a business owner is it does go a little bit back to the what and the how. So, when you are interviewing contractors, you make sure that they are clear on the what and the how. And we can manage contractors. IR35 doesn't actually prevent us managing people. It prevents us treating them like permanent members of staff. So manage them appropriately, but also make damn sure that your contract prevents them doing those things. So whatever contractual terms they sign up to when they're working with Silverbuck, make damn sure that they cannot go and engage direct. That from a legal perspective, you have every right to protect your business in that way. But I think it goes back to the what and the how. And there's something else here which I find loads of business owners don't like, and that is managing conflict. And it is having an upfront conversation and saying that is not acceptable, and just being really frank about that, and working that through. That's not about being a bastard. That is about just setting out the stall and saying, this is what we're doing as a business. We're paying you a day rate to your limited company, but this is as our client, we're pulling you in to support us and augment the team to deliver this piece of work. But contractually, they're our client. You're engaged into us, and this is how we conduct ourselves. So my advice would be, frankly, directly, and you will always have contractors that go native. And we had this at Different, and in the end, we let them join the business that they'd gone native for. Miraculously enough, they weren't happy there either, but that wasn't my problem at that point. So you will always have people that want to go. The grass is always greener. Go and have a chow down on the grass then. So it's that just you can't manage people in that way. And people do have the freedom to go and do what they fancy. But in the end, we just took the decision that we weren't going to try and hang on to them. We want, and also there's an element of me as a contractor that, if they really want to go and work for that organisation, please crack on, go and do. That would be my advice. Sorry, I've gone on a slight rant there. I obviously touched a bit of a nerve, that one.
Indeed, does sound like it. I was like, oh, we're getting something here. We're going to get a story. Is it story time? 8:43 on Wednesday, the 21st of August. Welcome to the dulcet tones of Rachel Murphy. So, not only do we have another question from Sharon Pickering, how do you balance what to give away for free to raise awareness versus charging? Now, I know this is probably something that a lot of people struggle with, especially with all the information and advice that goes out on social media.
So this is a great one, and I'm going to answer this in two different ways. So I do loads of public speaking, and I obviously absolutely love it. I didn't always love it, but that's a story for a different podcast. But the a lot of the time, still, I get asked to do public speaking free of charge to raise my profile. I don't need my profile raising any further, so I politely decline unless it's a subject that is close to my heart and I would like to raise the profile of for some reason. And so there's an element there of just understanding your worth and saying thank you, but no. I am not going to prepare for a presentation, write the content, have a marketing expert review what I'm doing, do some dry runs, then roll in and do that free of charge. Um, the other bit, and this is something we've seen with our clients, is that they give so much away free at pre-sales that they are effectively leaving money on the table. So we've actually helped a client write $250,000 in the last 12 months that they were previously giving away free. And that's by resetting the services that they offer and actually having a conversation with the client to say, that is no longer free. That is a part of a service. There's an SLA around it. We're delivering value to you. You can reach out when you need, and therefore it's chargeable. I think the other bit, and perhaps where you were going with that question, is around how much value do you create to get somebody interested in the service and the products that you are taking to market. And this is a real balancing act. We talked about this yesterday with the ICP for 8-figure exit, the service we're taking out again in September. And we will do some free content that creates value. So I may shape up a module of 8-figure exit and make that available behind gated content so we can collect some information and we can therefore have a conversation with prospects. But it's a real balancing act. I would never say throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that for SaaS-based businesses, if you are giving access to the software for a period of time, free trial, you'd want to cap that at quite a short window. Lots of people do. But again, you'd need to really test that through, because there's also an element that when people get stuff for free, they do not respect it. It's a real balancing act. So I've tried to answer that question 3 different ways. I hope that was what you were asking, Sharon. But please let us know if it wasn't.
Awesome. Okay, so I've just asked if there's any more for any more. I have had an anonymous question come through. They don't want to show themselves just at the moment. And they're just asking,
I'm very curious about this. Is this a previous boss of mine, an ex of mine? I mean, I'm dreading to think what this question is, but please go ahead.
I'm dreading to think if I have a boss of an ex of yours on my WhatsApp. So what they are asking is, when setting up a business, as they've encountered with the businesses that they've worked in, is when setting up the kind of HR people side of things, is by putting in place already things for disciplinaries and how to deal with people that aren't doing what they should, or
Yep.
stepping out of those boundaries. does it set a negative tone to put in place straight away a standard kind of disciplinary process or things like that? Because, it's
No,
quite a negative conversation.
I think that I think being clear, if you're hiring permanent staff, being clear about how you manage people and how people conduct themselves and what a performance improvement plan looks like if there is an issue. I don't think it's negative. I think you're setting out the stall and you're being transparent about how the business operates. I mean, let's face it, it's a massive investment when you're hiring somebody permanently, not just paying the salary on a monthly, but all the hiring process, all the training. Nobody rolls in and knows everything from day one. So there's a huge investment there. And so I absolutely think that people should be transparent. Business owners should be transparent about that process. And we are a very I guess this process is particularly clear from a legislation perspective in the UK anyway. So it's laid down for us. So no is the answer. I would be transparent about that.
So you should have something set up. You should be thinking about that when you bring on people into your business. It should already be laid out regardless, rather than trying to make it up down the line.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I think if you're hiring permanent people, I guess the default for the UK is that from a legislation perspective, this stuff is all laid down, whether it's written in a company handbook or not. It's in the public domain. If you are hiring people, then expecting them to have a reasonable understanding. They can have a contract of employment. That's going to lay all this stuff out: termination, notice, and. So I don't think it should be a surprise to people. Is the honest answer.
Awesome. So I'm going to give a couple, like a minute for anybody else to jump in right at the end as we're just trying to sign off with
Is
any
it
more
get
questions.
some more music up?
Oh no, here we go. Obviously, when this goes on YouTube, that would be taken out. But we've really covered quite a breadth of subjects today. I'm very intrigued about what Bootstrapper Hour will sound like in September, when more people may be back from holiday and set and think they've probably had a great idea while they're sunning themselves on the beach and gone, I want to do that. Come to Bootstrapper Hour and ask Rach how to do it.
Feel free. And I do think, for everybody who has attended today, genuinely, please do share the link to this, because we are keen to start to build a community of people that, really do leverage this time for personal benefit. The intention is also that I will bring exiteers in to this session. So as exciting as it is listening to me, we will also bring other people who've been through the process of growing, scaling, and exiting businesses. But I wanted to get the party started myself and see how the first one ran. But there will be more colour in the future.
That's awesome. And I think that goes back to actually Sharon's question about balancing that giving away for free and to raise awareness to charging. This is very much a free session to get people started and to build that community of people that are starting out and going through it.
Yeah, and I think it's also, it's very easy in this industry, building the grafter, for us to be in a position where, we don't have an opportunity to give back. And I want to address that. And I want to make sure that we are, on a monthly basis, helping those that are coming up, through the ranks, and that we share some of our learning and experience. And the reality is, I'm no magician. So I'm not going to have an answer to everything, but chances are I know somebody who does, and I'm not afraid to use that network. So hopefully, people found it useful.
Yeah, I'm very well aware of you're not afraid to ask, you're not afraid to use a network. So Sharon says, golden advice. Thank you for giving your time to us starting out. Much appreciated. I've had fun. I hope you have, Rach. It's not been too terrifying.
Absolutely loved it, mate. It's been really good fun. So thoroughly enjoyed.
And so, just to end with, if anybody does want to reach out, Rachel's LinkedIn DMs are always open because she cannot stay away. So, drop in. Otherwise, maybe we'll see you in September.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.